A true legend in the sport of professional wrestling. Terry Funk, deja vu all over again, 5 years later.
You never thought I'd live this long, did you, Rob?
So good to have you back here in our
I'm
office.
still here, Rob.
I know, I know. How's your health these days?
Oh gosh, it really sucks. No, honestly and seriously, it's like a fella that's been in the ring for 30 years. It's not easy for me to get up in the morning.
All right.
It really isn't, and got a lot of things wrong with me, you know, and a lot of things right too. I mean, I haven't laid down and said that I'm not going to live anymore, you know, live my life the way that I want to anymore, you know, as I do just about what I want to do, you know, and but every day as I feel it in my knees and back, and I think any wrestler after being through what I've been through in the ring and would have the same thing. I think I'm lucky. I think I'm lucky because God gave me a good body, you know, good bump body.
Right.
You know, gave me a hard head, you know, and I've been very fortunate.
A lot of people say you don't have bones yet. You're made out of a wired hanger.
I don't have many joints. I don't think anymore the way it feels, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's my health is pretty good, and the most important thing is I still got my mind. And that's really the important thing, is whenever you get older and stuff, is you want to be able to think and think quick, and that's a wonderful thing to where was I now? See, I was just kidding.
No. I think the last time you were here was like maybe 5 years ago. You were still with the WWF doing a Chainsaw Charlie.
Yeah, Chainsaw Charlie.
Yeah. Now, are you shocked that
God, I killed Chainsaw Charlie. I hope I did at least. I think he's dead. I want Chainsaw to be dead. That was the most...
you don't like it?
Well, that was the most absurd thing that I ever came up with in my life, was Chainsaw Charlie. Chainsaw Charlie was not successful. Chainsaw Charlie, and I did another one time for Joe Blanchard down there. I came in 1 week. Lasted 1 week as Doctor Knows It All. What's your occupation? Chiropractor. I did, seriously. I put on a mask and thought, the hell, this is a hell of an idea, you know, and that one sucked too. You know. I guess everybody's can have a couple of sucking creations in their lifetime. You know.
That happens.
Well, I did. I hope I don't have any more.
What actually led you leaving to the WWF after your tag team match with I think it was Bradshaw?
Honestly, is I had kind of talked to Vince about that prior to that, you know, and it was a deal that I came in there and they called me up and asked me to help them out because they were in trouble with ratings. And I came up there, and there was two reasons I came up there. One was for him asking, and I went into there, and the other one was for Cactus, because I wanted to help Cactus out there. And you can ask Cactus this or not, as I pointed everything to him at that time, and because I wanted to see the guy really do good in this business, and he's a friend of mine.
You still talk to Mick at all?
Talked to him last week, writing another book.
Wow.
On the origins of wrestling or something. He was talking about how they did it in the carnivals, and I was talking, I said, my God, Cactus, we got to go back to earlier than that, you know. I said, if you believe in the Bible, we got to go back to, you know, whenever the Lord fought the angel, you know, all night long, first death match, you know. Or if it wasn't the Bible, if you don't believe in the Bible, we're talking about those apes running around, you know. Whenever they caught each other, they wrestled, you know. I guess it maybe track was first, though, because they ran from each other, and then they go ahead and wrestle. Maybe baseball was first. They pick up a rock and throw it at the other one, you know. So who knows what sport was first, but wrestling's pretty damn old.
What actually led you leaving WWF?
Basically that is that the ratings were coming up. They had improved on the ratings a great deal, and I pretty much decided I was going to be there a short period of time. And
right.
Honestly and seriously, Rob, is I don't want to spend a lot of time anywhere.
Okay.
Because value my days and value my time with my family, and I like getting back home. And you know,
Did you leave on good terms with Jim Ross and Vince?
Oh, absolutely. I left on good terms with them. Very disappointed, not with ECW, but with WCW. I was disappointed with the whole atmosphere down there, the whole thing. And it was making a buck, and a very good one for me. And I was putting in time down there. But it was a bad situation because WCW was probably the greatest thing that the wrestlers ever had and ever will have in this profession, unless someday they decide to buck up and form a union,
Right.
and they should.
I got a lot of questions regarding WCW coming up soon. But getting back to ECW, how did who made contact with you to bring you back? Was it Paulie or Tommy or?
If I remember correctly, I think it was Paulie. I think it was Paulie, and whenever I went back, I didn't go that long either.
Right, you
Yeah.
came back with Dreamer to do that.
Came back with Dreamer to do that deal with Dreamer, and then I went ahead and came down with some kind of hepatitis, and it was a bad situation for about 3 or 4 months there before I really got to feeling good again.
How different was ECW this
And
time
it was,
around?
I might add that it was a hepatitis from
Right.
bad food.
Not like Pamela Anderson.
No.
How different was ECW this time around from the previous time you were there?
I felt like it was still a good group and an organization, but they'd been picked through a lot by then. You know, and the picking had started to take place by Vince and WCW. And that was a part of the downfall of ECW. We like to think it wasn't. We like to think it was other reasons, and but I think the picking of the talent began to take its toll on Paulie,
Right.
and they weren't going to stop. You know, they were going to pick his bones clean.
What were the plans that Paulie had for you and Tommy? Because it never really went anywhere.
We were going to just finally. I was going to switch
Right.
and switch to a heel up there, and I think it would have been a pretty appealing thing. I wish
Great.
it might have been. I wish it might have worked out, but it didn't.
Were there any plans to do anything with you and Dusty Rhodes in ECW? Because I know Dusty came in and he had made some comments to us actually about bringing you in and doing some stuff.
Well, that Dusty Rhodes, he had some plans, but I didn't.
Right.
Nah, I would have enjoyed working a program with him up there. I would have, and they talked about it. And I don't know what was it.
I don't even know.
It just kind of just blew away, you know.
Could have been money and stuff. Who knows?
Could have been anything with
Yeah.
Paulie and Dusty, you know.
Yeah.
Could have been a master plan. I'm sure it was a master plan if those two were involved.
After you recovered from hepatitis, you never came back to finish the angle. Why is that?
Well, you move on, and ECW had moved on at that time, you know. And the other thing is that again, as I value my time at this time in my life, you know.
How did you get back into WCW? How did that wind up happening?
Got a call one day, and the call was from J.J. Dillon. And he called me up and says, Terry, we've got this deal we want to do with you. And we want you to come in. And they want to know how much I wanted per day. And I told them, and they finally agreed to it. So that's kind of the way it went, you know. And so I went back down there.
What were your original impressions of Vince Russo when you came back?
Hard to say. There's a guy running it I probably didn't say 15 words to. You know, I mean, I think that I have a few things to offer
Right.
to this business about after I've been in it as long as I have, and I think I can spot some things that are right and wrong with an area. And, you know, I think I deserve at least an asking about it, but
You didn't.
nobody even asked. And after a point, after a period of time, is that I realized which direction it was going, and there was no stopping it. You know, so I just sat back there and observed and took my money. You know, I figured that one time in my life it was okay to sit there and be on a gravy train.
Do you think that Vince Russo had a good mind for the business, or no?
I don't, you know, I mean, I think he had a creative mind. I think he had a creative mind, but much of what he created was not in tune to the business and what the people wanted. I think he would be very good on a committee. I think he'd be excellent on a booking committee. Just like I think Kevin Sullivan is. I there's an endless mine right there and a devious mine.
Right.
But you got to siphon through all of the bad, and he does have a lot of good, a great deal of good, but you got to throw some of it out the window. And I think we're all that way. I think almost all creative people are. But you have to have somebody keeping you within a hallway and not just bouncing off the walls, you know, of the next room and of the next house and of a, you know.
How were you accepted by the locker room at this time? Were you treated with respect, or were the younger guys more arrogant towards you?
I can never complain about a locker room and the guys in this business. I love them, and I like them. There's certain individuals that I really don't care for that disappear, you know, and don't have enough. I don't want to mention any names,
I was going to ask you.
but don't have enough appreciation for their fellow wrestler to dress with them or be around them or anything else. I mean, who in the hell's getting them over?
Right.
These are the guys getting you over, pal. These are the guys making you who you are. You're certainly not that goddamn tough. You know.
How would you compare the WCW locker room at the time to the WWF's when you had left?
WWF was a very good locker room whenever I left up there. It really was. Great bunch of guys. Bunch of guys that were getting along. I thought a big mistake of Vince was the, what was it? It was the thing where he had everybody in the shoot fighting or whatever it was.
Yes.
Brawl for all.
The brawl for all.
Brawl for all. That was a stupid thing. You know, another reason why I cannot call, besides the XWF, why I cannot call Vince McMahon a genius, is a brawl for all. As it created an animosity in its own way, in a locker room. Whenever you've got two guys going out there, and the guys know them, and the guys split, and one group of guys is screaming for Bradshaw, and the other group of the guys is screaming for somebody else, it creates an animosity that you don't need.
Right.
And he could have created a much better thing if he just said, all right, we're going to have a brawl for all, didn't tell anybody, and worked every one of them.
Right, right.
What would have been the difference? And had a better deal, and it wouldn't have made a bit of difference to the people at home. You know, it was a very dangerous thing that he did, and luckily he got away with it.
It hurts
Vince
you,
has done some dangerous things up there that could be very costly to him and his company. And that was one of them, because you could wind up there with a guy that doesn't have much sense after one of those things. And it could be, and you would be liable for it, you know, the same way as the Owen Hart situation was.
Right. How bad were the politics in the WCW locker room?
Terrible. Terrible. And I never did enter into them, and never did I want to enter into them. As far as I was concerned, politics was not a matter, because I didn't get involved with that at all. You know, the thing took place with the Guerrero and all of those guys that went ahead, and they were down there to start, Shane and them, you know, and that was such a political group there, and then they had Nash and that group there, and
Right.
then they had the behind the scenes group that was there, and it was just like everything pulling at everybody. Then we had the contagious concussions, you know,
Right.
and it was endless. I mean, why try to fight it, you know?
Did Kevin and Hawk have a lot of power with Bischoff and stuff like that? Were they always in his ear?
I felt that they had some good power with them. I felt that they did. And I don't know that, but I mean, I feel that they had power with them at the start, and then it was total animosity between the two at the end. And that's in a very short period of time, you know. And you have to understand my thoughts. I'm being as honest as I can with you. Just as honest as I can with you. You know, can these guys draw money? Yes, they can draw money. They've proven it before. But, you know, so I don't misunderstand me. I'm not sitting up here and drawing and knocking their capabilities of putting asses in the seats.
Right.
If used properly and in the proper angles.
Now I know in an interview you said earlier on, I don't know where it was taken, maybe been in a magazine or something like that. But I know you didn't care for Hogan in the past or something like that. How was it like working with Hogan again?
I wouldn't mind it. You know, I mean, a lot of things have healed over the years, you know, and a lot of things have changed. But again, as I'm 58 years old, and I really don't have any desire, and I don't think that you could, you know, honestly and seriously, right now at this time, you know, and I've been out to California, and I've been in the movies and stuff, and I raised my right hand, and that's when Harley Race had raised his right hand, you knew he was lying. You know, because I swear, you know.
Right.
Well, you knew that here comes a big one, you know. But yeah, again, is Hogan is we had problems in the past, and but I really do, you know, is I would like to. First of all, is Hogan and I have had problems in the past and everything else, but there is really no chance of me working with him. Would I like to work with him? Sure I would, but I really don't want to because I don't want to go out in this business for the last run. I don't want to make the last run.
Did you see that as your last run?
Huh?
Did you see WCW as maybe your last run?
I would say my major run, absolutely, absolutely, unless something comes up on a pay-per-view or something. As far as going out and making a run, absolutely, I don't want to go out again. And it's, you know, it's like out in California, is if they would offer me a spot to in a series and offer me a good deal of money, I don't think I would do it because it takes 6 months.
Right.
Take 6 months out of my life. I don't want to do that anymore. You take 6 months out of my life again in wrestling, it's not going to happen. A run to me is one big night, and I don't mean that badly. It's not that could I make another run? Probably not, but I think that I can. You know,
Right.
my mind says to me, Funk, you can make one more run, but I really don't want to make that run. I really do not want to spend the time to do it. You know, I want to be at home. I want to do other things. I want to do things away from this business. You know, I
Right.
really do. Do I find
It
that
wasn't
was
your last match, but
ironic?
right.
Possibly. I really don't think that it'll be Brett's last match. I think he'll come back and do another one for, if it's for charity or whatever it might be. And again, you know, as Brett's had some things that pretty heady things that have happened to him in this business. And when he says it's his last time, it's more than likely his last time. I mean, if my brother came to his brother's fate, I know that I wouldn't look the same way at life
Right.
as a whole. Changes your views on your entire life.
Definitely. What was he like to work with since he had the concussion? Was it an easy match or?
You know, is Brett such a great guy, and he's such a person that wants to have a good match, and he and I are close as far as friends are concerned, that whenever I went in the ring, he never even made mention of that. And that's and he did re-injure that thing within that match with me,
Right.
and but never did say it. But I know that that's where it happened, because later through the grapevine, the wrestling grapevine,
Right.
I heard that, and I'm sure that's where it happened. But he didn't want to make me feel like it was my fault or anything like that, and he just shut up like Brett does, you know. And got a lot of respect for that whole family, even the crazy ones in it.
Right.
They're unique. It's a good way to describe them. Unique, a very unique family.
At what point in WCW did you realize things were out of hand and chaotic?
Probably whenever the phone rang that morning.
Right.
And there they were. They had to be in trouble to be calling the Funker. That was the, you know, that, and I don't know why they wouldn't want me down there sooner, but why in the hell would they wait? Why do they always wait till things are at its worst or at the dimmest before they call the Funker? I mean, what am I? Am I some kind of bad guy, or what do I do wrong? I don't know. But whenever I get a call from one of those groups, just like Vince the time before, you know, it was wait until the last second to call the Funker. There's what's the Funker can help. That, yeah, I kind of knew that there was something wrong when the phone rang that morning. And it was on Christmas Eve, I think it was.
Right.
Phone rang, and there was J.J. Dillon. Something's got to be wrong. You're calling on Christmas Eve.
So was it that bad when you got there?
It was not good.
Right.
It was not good. There wasn't much I could do about it either. You know.
What are your thoughts on Bill Goldberg?
I like the guy. He's always been extremely nice to me. I haven't had that much of a relationship with him, though. You know, I mean, it's a matter of 100 guys running around and,
Right.
and trying to figure out what you're going to do in the ring that night, and really never have sat down and had a beer with him or a long talk, but just seems to be a nice guy and nice to me, and I'm nice to him.
Do you think they killed him off on purpose? Other guys in the company like Nash and Hogan?
It didn't seem too accidental to me.
Right.
Did it you?
No.
No.
Not at all.
Did it seem like a kill? Absolutely. They couldn't stand it, you know. They couldn't stand a goose that laid the golden egg.
Now,
They didn't have not only wring the goose's neck, they broke its wings first. They broke its legs. They stomped on that son of a bitch till it took its last breath.
Now, if this was in WWF and Bill Goldberg was over there, how different do you think the outcome of Bill Goldberg's character would have been? You think he'd still be strong today?
If he was controllable, he would still be strong today. That's a big question. That's what happens,
All right.
you know.
How did Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, how did they treat you outside the ring? And how did they treat you in the ring?
Treated me good. And again, that's just the way it is they treated me good, but they, you definitely know that Kevin is, and they've been very successful. Why shouldn't they be this way? You understand? Is that why wouldn't they be? They've been successful and have become very wealthy by taking care of themselves first. So maybe I'm the wrong one, you know. Maybe I should be looking at taking care of myself first and not the business. I probably would be a lot better off. But you know, it really doesn't matter on who's got the most money. You know that? It's not a big deal on how much money I have. You can win in this world if you just live one day longer than what they do. And that's what you got to always remember. If you can live one day longer, think of the amount of money Vince would pay you. He'd give you everything he had to have that extra day. And so would anybody in this business. So that's why you've got to always keep things in perspective. Life is very important.
Did any comments that they made about your age from them in promos ever bother you? Did you ever?
No,
I'd
I'd tell them to jump on it. I'd tell them, I said, go right ahead. You know,
Right.
The age deal was something. In fact, I used to come out and say, talk about my wrinkled old ass,
All right.
and there was a reason for that. If I talk about my wrinkled old ass, and I go ahead and I realize it, I mean, I do. First thing that I do is I make a point to let people know that I'm an old son of a bitch out there, and that's very important to me because they know that it doesn't bother me that I am old. You know, I mean, that's a very important point that I make, is that I always tell them what the age I am.
Right.
And I feel 85.
How old are you today?
57, fixing to be 58 June the 30th. Anybody's got a lot of money they want to send me, well, be sure and ship it out to me. I'll
Sounds
give
sure.
Rob, ship it to Rob.
Yes.
Ship it to Rob. He'll get it to me. I don't want to give you my address, nor my phone number. That's on internet. That I get calls at 4 in the morning. I had the same phone number for 30 years. Now I'm going to have to change it because people drive me nuts.
What are your thoughts on being paired with Paul Orndorff and Larry Zbyszko?
One more time?
What were your thoughts when they paired you with Orndorff and Zbyszko?
I thought that was just fine with me.
Right.
That was just fine with me. You know, and the night they brought Snook in and him, and hey, it was successful. You know, we always have to remember, it's, you know, and these guys got into this age gimmick so much, and age. It's not the age of the individual, it's the age of the program. That's what has a bearing on this business. The age of the program, what you are doing with those individuals. That's what so many people don't understand in this business. You know, I mean, look at Vince. Is one thing he did. You know, I mean, the guy has done a lot of successful things too. But look what he did with Moolah. She was the ratings would pop up there like crazy. Moolah would come on. You'd think Moolah was the superstar of the damn WWF show, and evidently she was at that time because, damn, those ratings with Mae Young and Moolah, they bounce right up there. Seriously so.
No.
Seriously so. So it's not the age of the performer, it's the age of the program. And it's very difficult to be fresh and new. And that's the same way it is with Henry Ford, you know. I mean, look at him, you know, Vince is the only product that is available right now. And wrestling is what he perceives it to be. That is a thing that he has always wished for that is really a detriment to him. Because you think about it, if Henry Ford was the only person to ever make automobiles, they'd still be black and they'd still look like Model A. And he'd still be selling them son of a bitches. And we'd still be going 20 miles an hour. And that's the same way with wrestling. That's why competition is healthy.
Right now there's none, so. What are your thoughts on working with Ric Flair again? And how different was it from 11 years earlier?
You know, Rick is a talented individual, and very talented. Very good on the mic. He's proven himself again and again as far as ratings are concerned. I'm not sure that the right program is there. Just bottom line, I don't think there would be a program there.
I mean, did you enjoy working with him again?
Did
Yeah,
I enjoy working with him? Sure, I did. I enjoyed going in the ring. I thought, I had fun with it. I thought it was mishandled. I thought it could have been done much better.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought it was just it was haberdashery.
They just throw it out there.
It's just thrown out there and just mishmash. It was. Did I enjoy that part of it? No. Did I enjoy having a chance to go in? Yes, I enjoyed the idea. But the way it was handled, it was just a mess.
Right. In the last shoot interview that we did.
So I could say, no, I didn't enjoy working with him, but it certainly wasn't because of Rick.
Right.
It was because of the way they put it together and the way they just threw it out.
No plan.
And just kept on throwing it out. It was just a weekly situation like, let's throw whatever we can, you know. And I also had a chicken one day there, you know,
right.
Real chicken, you know, and that's where the chicken punch came in. I wanted to talk to Ric Flair as a chicken, and they cut that off.
In the last shoot interview that we did with you, you were brief about your feelings towards him, but you said you didn't like Flair because he tried to retire you at 44. And
that's true.
Right.
That's true.
Did you guys mend fences at all, or?
Time mends fences.
Right.
Time mends fences, and you tend to forget things that are not right, and you remember the good things. You really do. And there are a lot of good things back here, too.
When you were in WCW, did you lose motivation at all?
Individually, no, because I just do the best thing that I could with whatever they gave me. And I did not lose motivation, and just looked at things as an individual. Not individual, my individual performance against somebody, and that performance, like, I just wanted to make everything as good as I could possibly make it, and my opponent did too. And that's kind of the way that everybody looked at things down there. It was the only way to look at them at that time, you know.
How did things change from the original plans WCW had for you?
I don't know if they really had any plans. All they did is all they wanted to do was make it through one pay-per-view.
Right.
That's all they were concerned about, is getting through that one pay-per-view. And when I first went down there, that's all it was. It's just a way to get through a pay-per-view. That's whenever they were racking them off, what was it, every 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah.
And both of them were battling to be the pay-per-view nuts of the world, whatever it is.
Huh. Do you regret anything you ever did in WCW?
Not really. Would have taken probably a few less chances than what I did, you know.
Who were some of your favorite guys to work with when you went back?
I really didn't go into a program with anybody, a definite program. You know, I enjoyed all the guys that I worked with. Guys always busted their ass. Every one of them did.
How about Norman Smiley?
Smiley is a good guy, great guy. And the only guy that only one guy that I didn't want to work with, that
What do you look like?
he was very, very fat. Crack of his ass.
Ralphie.
And,
The old guy.
Ralphus.
Yes, Ralphie.
Ralphie was an idiot,
Norman Smiley.
but a lovable idiot. You know, and Norman Smiley's a good guy.
Smiley said in his interview that we did with him that you almost killed Ralphus.
Hell, Ralphus needed to die,
Yeah.
except 2 weeks earlier. Ralphie should have been shot off in a trash can. Oh, I think that's funny. I don't know if you guys do or not.
What were your thoughts on Jim Ross's comments back in the day when he said they were still under contract to the WWF?
That was utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
Funk's still under contract, and we had to cut him. I was under no contract with him.
Why do you think he said that?
Just to make them sound good.
Right.
It's pretty simple.
Do you have any thoughts on Lance
I would
Storm?
have probably said the same thing if Jim Ross was the reverse situation, you know.
Right.
Well, Jim Ross is under contract with us, but we let him go because he couldn't do us any good anyhow.
You left for a brief little period, and then you came back and you feuded with Crowbar. What led you to leaving?
Oh gosh, what led me to leaving with Crowbar before Crowbar? I really was kind of not happy with the way things were being ran, and I think that I made myself I don't think it was me, as I think one night I threw a few chairs and crashed up a few things and had a little temper tantrum, and was in a very pissed off mood. They decided it'd be better to leave me at home.
All right.
So that was the deal that led to that, and I can't even remember. It was in one of those crazy hardcore matches, and it was just I just about had my full of it. And so I had a little rage and temper tantrum, you know, and I think that probably had to do with it leaving me off, and then they went ahead and brought me back with Crowbar, and God only knows why, but I guess they didn't care if I had a rage and a temper tantrum with Crowbar.
Right.
But I like Crowbar.
What were the differences in Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo's philosophy of booking?
You know, I think that both of them were very full of themselves at that time. And I probably shouldn't say that about Bischoff, because I really, to this day, you know, as I've had certain thoughts about him and everything else, but I really never have dealt with him at, you know, been a personal situation we're doing stuff together. And I really haven't dealt with Russo, but both those guys are pretty hard for me to deal with. How much ability do they have? I think that again, I think that Eric Bischoff did things that I would have never done and made him successful. And I have to put a feather in his cap for that. And that's whenever he moved the times head to head. It was probably one of the most innovative things done in the last 20 years in wrestling, and he was successful at that. I think that they are limited in this profession, and I'm sure that they don't feel that way. But definitely have some values. Like I said about Russo, got great ideas. It's just the bad ones. And the same way, same way with Eric, got great ideas, but it's just the bad ones.
Right. In January of 2000, ECW ran their final shows. What are your thoughts on the ending of ECW?
Probably inevitable. The way they were approaching the business and continue on with it on a TV basis and on a, as far as a national TV basis, trying to buy your way into it, and it was not going to be successful, and it was an inevitable thing.
What are your thoughts on Paul Heyman's final 6 months of ECW with, bouncing checks and not being around and not being honest with some of the talent?
Well, when you love something and you don't have the money to keep it going, what are your alternatives? There wasn't any alternative for Paul Lee except to do that. Some of the things that Paul Lee did, I can't say condemn him for it, but some of the things he did were I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have done. The one thing that I'm talking about in particular is the Sabu thing down there, because I talked to Kevin, and they had him with a wonderful contract, and then Paulie stepped in on that, and I'll tell Paulie that to his face. Tell him that tomorrow. Stepped in on it and stopped it, and I don't. Maybe feelings were bad and it was tough and the lawsuits going back and forth and everything, but I think Paulie should have allowed him to make that move at that time.
Do you think there's anything wrong with Paul showing up in the WWF immediately after ECW folded while many of his talents were left without the job?
I really don't think so. I think a man has to do what a man has to do in order to provide for himself and his family. And I think that was a situation and opportunity. I think all of us in this room and a great many people know that it was not the first tie that he had with Vince. Vince pulled it out before.
Right.
So I think he was obligated. I don't think it was really that much of a choice of Paulie's, but even if it was, I would have done the same thing that Paulie did probably.
Why do you think ECW failed?
Simple. Just too much money to put out for a promotion. Ted Turner can't afford it. How can Paul Heyman? He gave it a hell of a run. He really did. And I think that there was a point there where it could have gone either way. It could have topped that hill and made it down and made the other side. And it was a close race, believe me. He damn near topped that hill. damn near made it, but he didn't. And it just takes too much money. If Ted Turner can't afford it, how can Paulie? And not Ted Turner, I'm talking about the companies now,
Right.
AOL.com. If they see it's not successful, how can he make it successful? Because you have to buy your way into it. You know that better than anybody else, Rob. You got to buy your way into it. And that's why that you need to look at other avenues in this business. And believe me, they're out there. And I truly believe that Vince reached a peak, and I'll say this right now for everybody, and I'll be damned if they're going to prove me wrong on this one, but Vince reached a peak a couple of years ago with Austin and Rock that he's not going to reach again as the WWF. Now, some other organization might come along in the future and reach that peak, but not this group. It'll never reach that peak again. And there's possibility that one could come along if people have the right freshness and innovativeness about them. They can do well, but they have to travel a different avenue altogether. They can't go the route of buying the TVs. It's just like the guy that's got all the money in the XWF. God bless him, and a hell of a guy to do it. He's finding it is a very expensive endeavor. Their money back. Certainly a $250,000, $500,000 wrestling show, would be the way. It's a route to travel right now, because it's simple. It's easy that way, and you can give them a product that's a little more hardcore. And I'm not proclaiming hardcore like guys cutting their heads off or anything like that, but you can go a little more hardcore language-wise, blood-wise, otherwise, on a deal like that, whereas you can't on the television. So right there it moves you into being different again, and you have to come up with a different concept.
What are your thoughts on Scott Steiner?
Great guy. Scott is, I always thought Scott, be very honest with you, I thought that one of the epitome of he might be the epitome of a heel as far as some people are concerned. But he was, in '89, he was the epitome of what a babyface should be, and never once utilized. Had the looks, had the appearance, had the talent, had the demeanor, had the everything that a great babyface needs. Scott Steiner had it. I think that he should have been pushed right on the champion, into the championship at that time, and maybe WCW wouldn't have had that problem.
Why do you think they never gave him the ball? Was it politics?
I don't know if Scott wanted the ball at that time. I don't know if Scott wanted to carry the ball at that time. It was, he and Rick were very much into the tag team situation
Right.
at that time. And I was talking about pulling Scott away individually and making him an individual at that time. See, I think a lot of things are attributes. I think that Scott, if you talk to Scott back then is he was what he was. And I think that he was a great wrestler, great athlete, great looking guy, bashful. And these are all attributes. I mean, you don't believe it, but bashful is an attribute in wrestling as far as a babyface is concerned. And a lot of people don't understand it. Oh, you can't talk on TV. Oh, yeah, if you got to drag it out of them, it's better yet.
Right.
And everything comes from the heart. It's better than having somebody that's talking 900 miles an hour and this and that. And I think that's one thing that Japanese have looked at and they've seen, and they've brought out the real personalities of these individuals and taken advantage of them. And I think America has been just pushed down their throat this arrogant type of tough guy deal. I think that there's a place in it for that, And sure, it's easier to go the other route. But once you get a guy over like you do Jack Briscoe, he's over for a lifetime, And Still talk to people. People still talk about Bruno Sammartino. There's a guy you had to pull a word out of. You know, you couldn't get a word out of him. You know,
Right.
and that's why I thought Scott was so good at the time. You know, I think they always ask me, you know, what about guys that should be here, should be there, or something else like that. You know, I really truthfully believe it. They say, who's going to be the next guy? And a lot of times they, how the hell do I know? You know, but I can spot guys. And I spotted one. I really think there's a kid running around out there by the name of Paul London that is a hell of a goddamn performer. And I think if WWF doesn't pick him up, they ought to have their heads examined. I mean, just and I've got no ties with him. I'm not on he's not on contract with me. I'm not making a cent from him. I just watch the kid work, and I promise you, I can spot a worker, and the boy can work.
Was there ever a time when you just felt like you wish you never came back to WCW in the first place?
Yeah, the night I went ahead and threw everything around the goddamn locker rooms and down the hallways and kicked the goddamn doors and all
Right.
that shit. Yeah, that definitely was a time. I never wished I came back to WCW, but I did. For one way, and the Funker's no different than anybody else. I hate that, talking in that person, you know, the Funker like he's somebody else. You know, that's a horrible thing to do, you know, but I shouldn't do that. But yeah, it's,
Thoughts on returning to All Japan for the Baba tribute show and teaming with Anita against Abby and Kamala? Kamala number 2.
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was a pretty big deal to go back in the ring with Abby, you know, after all that time. But I knew, and I knew that, and the people assume things in their mind, and they become bigger through the years. And I had a bit of a fear in me at that match, because they build it up into being something that it didn't. You know, it's kind of like the old Joe Louis matches. You know,
Right.
you think, by God, old Joe Louis. You know, and I'm really going back now, but Joe Louis was. But then you look at the fights with Joe Louis in them. You know, or you see the Sonny Liston Cassius Clay fight. It wasn't all it was that we had in our minds. You know, but we built it up, and I thought that would. You know, that was a thing that was somewhat true over there. People had all of that time to build that particular match up in their minds, and it was something that they all remembered. You know, and it's hard to duplicate something that has had that much time to mature into almost a fantasy.
Whose idea was it to bring back blood in All Japan for you and Abby?
There's only one person it could be, and that's Matoka. She had to okay it.
All right.
You know.
Was there any influence by WCW not to have you there since they worked with New Japan at the time?
Not really. There really wasn't. Not at all. Not at all.
What are your thoughts on Misawa, Kobashi, and several others leaving and starting up Noah?
It's progression of the wrestling business. It's the best way I can put it. And more power to them. And again, that's freshness. That's just the way the business is. And we'll continually see things like that change the world of wrestling, just like Muta.
Right.
And who would have ever thought that guy would have come back from? Whenever I was down in WCW, there was a guy that couldn't get the crowd to say boo. Now it's the hottest thing in the country over there.
Yep.
And rightfully so, because he's working his ass off. Really working his ass off. Talk about giving 100% a match. That guy's doing it. Tenryu too.
He's awesome.
And there's Tenryu, you know, one thing I'll just bring up another fact.
It's okay.
It was really funny because I can remember in about, 83 I retired, but right before that, I mean, I'm looking at myself at, let's see, 83, damn near 20 years ago. So I had to be about 39 or 40. I'm not too good at addition.
Ah,
But anyhow, as Tenru went ahead, and his big gripe and his big bitch at that time was guys like me needed to get out of the business. Stan Hansen was the same way, you know. Guys like me needed to get out of the business. And now here's Tenru sitting there on 50, still loving it, still busting his ass in there. I'd like for him to come in here and sit down beside me right now, and I'd like to say, hey, you're about 10 years overdue.
we were gonna actually have Abby here today with you. We were gonna try to work that out, but that would have been an interesting little dialogue.
Yeah, I don't know. That would have been some good dialogue here. Very good.
Were you surprised at the failure of the XFL?
Not at all. Again, it's a matter of fact of putting a Vince Russo at the head of wrestling. We just had another Vince, but he was at the head of football.
Right.
And you've got to know your profession better than that. And I'm not saying that Vince didn't have a few good ideas, and a few things were good that he did out there. But he needs somebody to sift through them with a football background. And I don't mean this bad, and not Jim Ross either, who loves football. But he doesn't, and again, as I'm sure Vince Russo probably loved wrestling, or else he wouldn't have gotten into it. But the same thing is true. You've got to have those people that spent their life in it and really know what it's about and have a wonderful understanding behind calling the shots.
What are your thoughts on the attempted revival of the NWA?
The attempted one, which one was it? It's been attempted to be revived ever since the demise of it.
Right.
So it's nothing new. And I mean, I'd have to know which attempted revival. I can remember going out to Vegas for meetings with all of the new members of the NWA, and then about 3 years later going somewhere else to revitalize it again. You know.
Right. Right.
I think the name has meaning, but nothing else.
When you were in WCW, did anybody ever refuse to put you over? The last time around?
Not to my knowledge whatsoever.
And what are your thoughts on wrestlers that refuse to do jobs and stuff?
Well, it's changed through the years, and again, it's just because of the way things are. Is right now, is you don't ever hear it. You don't ever hear it. If somebody refuses, you don't hear it. They never do it in front of each other. And if it would have been done whenever I first got into business, you'd have said, well, get your goddamn ass in the ring and let's see if you can wrestle or not.
Right.
But times have changed. You don't hear it. You don't hear it till after it's over, if you do hear it. And it's through the grapevine, wrestling grapevine, if somebody does say, I'm not putting the asshole over. You know, that's how the business has changed. So I don't think anybody said that. And if they're saying it with business purposes, you've got to understand that too. If it's not good for business and they truly believe that, well, then that's okay for them to say.
Right.
And they have a valid point. Well, then I'll listen to their point on why they shouldn't. You know.
Do you
Like, it
think
wouldn't make much sense, you know, as for example, when I was with Bret Hart in that 50 years of wrestling show in Amarillo, you know, is Bret wanted to put, you know, I said, don't do it. I want to put you over, you know. And I had valid reasons why I wanted to put him over. And his reasons were from the heart. But my reasons were for business. And for business, it was better for me, it was better for Bret that he beat me.
how'd that show go?
I was scared to death about it. I had about 40 grand in this show before when I hadn't opened the doors. I made money off of it. I think we did like 57 grand or something like that on the show, you know. I mean, prices weren't that high. It's a hell of a crowd. But whenever you run an individual show, and you know this, Rob, you've gotten into the business now, it's very difficult by the time, you know, you have a lot of expenses in your, when you're running one show, if you become a set thing, then it becomes easier and it becomes cheaper. If you run every month somewhere, then you can get into the feel of things,
Right.
and get the prices down and everything else. But whenever you just say, all right, I'm running a big show, the cost can run right out from underneath you, you know. And it didn't run out from underneath me, but God, I was hoping the Lord would give me a day of sunshine, you
Right.
know, instead of foul weather. And he did, you know. So thank you, Lord.
What were your intentions? Were you really going to retire and stay retired? Or was that?
At that time, I really intended to know, because I never once advertised or said I was going to retire. And follow me all the way through on this, because it's the truth. Honest God truth. That one in Amarillo, I never once said I was going to retire. I never once said I was going to not ever wrestle again. But what was going on then was the filming of Beyond the Mat. And they wanted to have that as my retirement match. So they went on with it as my retirement match, which is just fine with me, you know. But I did say that this was going to be, because he said oh, could you make us? I said, I'll make it my last match in Amarillo.
Right.
And I really intended on making it my last match in Amarillo. But then they came back around, WCW did, and said, hey, Funk, we'll give you a hell of a lot of money for coming in here. Well, then I went ahead and went back in there one more time.
Do you think Beyond the Mat would have been bigger if Vince would have promoted it?
I think a very appealing thing to it was that Vince didn't promote it. And promotionally, I think that might have helped it more than Vince promoting it. The thing that Vince McMahon didn't want to see. Beyond the Mat, I think it's probably, if the truth were known, which we will never know, is I think it's probably the most successful tape that has ever been put out on professional wrestling. I think it's been the most successful documentary or movie,
Right.
which is a very fine line between the two, which I think was somewhat overcrossed, is I think it's the most successful.
Is it an accurate portrayal of Terry Funk and of the business, the movie Beyond the Mat?
Very much so. Very much so, as much as accurate as could be. And truly is, whenever I say I'm not sure if this was a movie or a documentary, I say that for a different reason than what you think, because it was a documentary totally. But documentaries are supposed to be non-profitable and not released majorly. And this was a profitable situation. That's what I wanted to clarify that.
Did you have any problems with Barry at all?
No,
I know
and
Jake
it
did.
really did, you know, and I say this to a lot of people, and I did so many interviews on it. It's like I get into this interview and pretty soon I'm talking and I don't even know what I'm saying. But the truth of the matter is Barry went ahead and he did a documentary. And what documentary first started out, and the cameras are there and you're performing, and you perform for a long period of time. But eventually the camera is not there. The camera is just like a part of the surrounding, and that's whenever your true documentary arises. And it was pretty much basically became, after about a year, I'd say after about 3 months, 2-3 months of him coming around doing that all the time.
Right.
Pretty soon you're talking and you're conscious of the camera, but then you forget the camera and you're just yourself wherever you're going. And that's when it becomes a true documentary. And I think that he did as good of a job of that as he possibly could. Jake's depiction of himself, God only knows if he is acting or if that was Jake. Only Jake knows.
Right.
But that's Jake. He's been the only one that knows forever.
Right, right. One of my favorite parts of the movie is with you and the referee when you offered him the spot on the show.
Just as honest, that spot right there was just as true as it could be.
It's classic.
It's just the way it was. Dennis was that way, and I had to beg him to goddamn take the spot, and did. I had to beg him, and he was pissed at me, and I went ahead and but I really wanted him to be a part of it, very much so.
How did you wind up finishing up with WCW?
Just working out my shots. I don't know if the last one was in Evansville or wherever it was up here in Indiana. They had about 4 shots and some TVs, and that was it.
Were you surprised that Vince bought WCW?
Yes, I was. I really was. It was no big huge shop. Vince McMahon bought. We all knew it was for sale, and they were trying to grab any money out of it. And it was good. It was a good move on his part to buy it, so somebody else couldn't continue on with it, and that's just about what he's done with it. Just abuse it. And it's become nothing.
How does the sale affect the business, in a good way or a bad way?
The sale, that sale,
Yeah, him taking over the company, basically.
him taking over WCW.
And what would you have done differently if you bought the
Oh
company?
God, if I had bought the business, I'd have done it totally different. But first place is Vince McMahon he bought WCW and paid the money for it. And what would I have done differently about WCW? Gosh, he just that was a question, right? Go back over that question, Ron.
Basically, if you were to go ahead and purchase WCW, what would you have done differently with and compared to what Vince has done with it? And also, I guess it's a two-part question. How do you think the sale is going to affect the wrestling business, good or bad?
Oh well, what that did whenever Vince bought the wrestling profession from WCW, it made him the sole owner. It made him honestly and seriously follow what I am saying. Wrestling was always had a choice. The people had a choice. So wrestling continued to change. When Vince McMahon bought WCW, wrestling is no longer what wrestling becomes or what wrestling morphs to. It's what Vince McMahon perceives it to be. That is not healthy for a business. That reflects back to the deal I was talking about, Henry Ford driving black Model A's. We'd still be driving them. The same thing. It is not going to change. It is not going to reach a new high, a new apex, a new plateau, a new acme. It will never do that again because he cannot create on his own more new stuff. He cannot, because his mind will not allow him to. His creative people, it will not allow him to. His organization won't change. That organization is there. It won't change like it would normally morph
Right.
if they had competition. And that's the problem with it. What would I have done with WCW if I would have taken it over? It would have probably been a tough, I'll tell you what, it was in a tough, rugged shape. You would have to go down to the base floor. I truly believe so. And try to create a new audience to compete at that time. At that time. But Vince he's taken it and just totally ran over it. And would I have done anything different than Vince? Probably not. He did a good job of disassembling that company to where somebody that could not come in there, and that's why he did it, to
Right.
disassemble the company.
Do you feel that there could be another national promotion in the U.S.?
Absolutely, at 100% so. And you and I personally talked about it earlier. Is you just got to go to that TV. You've got to go to Cinemax. You've
Right.
got to produce that thing. You cannot go out and you cannot buy TVs up like Paul E tried to do. It's too much money, or like the XWF. And I don't mean that badly. I'm just being as honest as I can. What they need to do is they need to look at the new avenue. And the new avenue is that $10.95 or that $12.95 that all the wrestling fans can afford, that they can all tune into and they can all see a great show and they can watch that same show for a month, and you can get your money back on it. It's just like a low-budget movie. They make more than $3 million, or the son of a bitches wouldn't be playing on there for the first play and playing for a month at a time. Well, you go on there with a wrestling show, which is much more inexpensive than producing a movie, and you put that great show together, and you put one that the wrestling fans, hey, wrestling fans find something new and fresh, by God, they're going to tell each and every one of them across the country. You don't need that big advertisement. You don't have that big expense.
What is the difference today in the business over in Japan as compared to years ago?
The numbers. Basically, that's it, is the numbers. And a lot more wrestling. I mean, they've evolved just like we are. We have, but they've evolved back. In fact, they've evolved back into the wrestling.
Right.
They've evolved out of the wrestling to everything that we're seeing here. Plus crazier. Plus, to the point of the bumps being more brutal than even what they are here. Plus to the deaths in the ring. They've evolved that far. And now they're back to going ahead and taking a double leg takedown and using holds and getting a pop and a rise out of the people instead of bouncing off the ropes and doing a double back flip and disappearing up your asshole. You know, I mean, that's it's to that point in this country.
Right.
And it was to that point in Japan. Well, they evolved back. They evolved forward, but forward is backwards at times.
Where do you see the business in the United States in the next 5 years?
Just exactly where I'm talking about. I think that somebody's going to emerge. I think that there's going to be a hell of a battle, and they don't even know it yet, but the battle's going to be fought over the grounds that I'm saying, which is not necessarily the pay-per-view, but it's a Cinemax, the all-month-long paid deal. I think they're going to have some shit shows, and I think they're going to have some good shows. And I think the ones that go ahead and present themselves to that group and do it well and come up with a great show are going to be the ones that prevail in this business as far as a new group is concerned. And I think that new group will be competitive with Vince McMahon, but in a different way. And a different way I am talking about is because they will be successful and make money, and Vince can be successful, and there can be more distance between the two. More distance. But they both will exist, and they both will do big business. And I think the thing that's on Cinemax or that can reach tremendous heights. Tremendous heights.
And they do house shows.
Possible. Yeah. Oh, after a period of time,
Right.
of course. But you're looking at 2-3 years down the line. But you're looking at doing maybe 4 shows a year until you establish your deal and do the first one. If it's successful, makes money, go to your second one. But give them a show that, like I said before, that does things that Vince can't do on his. That gives them an alternative. Gives the wrestling fan an alternative. And that's what is going to happen. It's not a matter, it's just a matter of when.
Right.
And it will happen. It's already in progress. Guys don't even know it, but they're starting to head for the pay-per-view, and they're heading this route. And they're going to pick their way through it, and one of them's going to find themselves on the Cinemax or whatever it might be, and getting that deal and playing all month long and being successful. And being competitive with Vince, because he'll be open to videos, to games, to, whatever it might be.
Right.
If they, they'll be in the same ballpark with him, but at a distance. At a distance.
What are your thoughts on Hogan, Nash, and Hall returning to the WWF?
I'm not really be very as honest and bottom line as I can be. I think it was a very short-term fix. Was it a fix? I don't know. We'll have to look at that. We'll have to see what kind of animosity it created among his boys. That's very important. It may not have been a fix.
Sorry,
Financial fix, yes it was, momentarily. But as far as a long-term financial fix, it may not be.
Are you surprised that Mick Foley walked away from a contract with Vince?
Not really. Not really. And again, you know, and this is not against Mick or anything else, but did we see the contract? What was it? Was it for $50? You know,
Right.
was it for 5,000? Was it for 500,000? 5 million? You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So
Nobody knows.
nobody knows that part of it. You know, did he really walk away from a contract? You know.
You had a match, I think it was June 5th of '99 in Canada against Sabu that you announced as a retirement match. How serious were you?
Where did I announce this one?
I don't. I don't even know.
I don't remember this one because, see, there's a lot of times.
You
as
could have
I
been a
go up-
promoter.
Well, no, as a promoter, I think it was up in Toronto.
Yeah.
And promoters do stuff like
You
that.
could have just did that. Just
Well, they do it all the time. They do it constantly, you know. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start announcing my retirement every night. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take up a collection, you know. All right, all you assholes, this is my last match. Dig deep in your pockets. I'll take anything.
thoughts on
And then I'll
returning.
bring the money to the ring and see what kind of amount of money I have. If I pour it out, if I got $100, well, you cheap bastards! I'm not
Gotta come
wrestling.
back.
I'm not wrestling hard tonight for you assholes.
Thoughts on returning to New Japan and your match against Backlund and Fujinami.
Yeah,
How did that go for you?
good experience, great experience. Because here's Fujinami, never been in a ring with him, and here's Backlund, who I've been in a ring with since he was in Amarillo, Texas.
Right.
You know, it was kind of fun. It was a fun situation, and it really was. It was a good time night. It was something fresh. For an old man my age, it was something fresh.
And I believe FMW brought you and your brother back together.
Yeah,
How did that go for you?
went very good. Went very. I think we was against Guido and the two guys over there, Guido and not Guido. What is the name? Ghetto and
Gato and Jado?
Gato and Jado.
Jado.
Yeah, we were good. So, a couple good guys.
What are your thoughts on wrestling recently for Big Japan against Mil Mascaras in a tag match?
I like Mill. You know, I've been on a lot of cards with Mill, and a lot of times I could be thankful for Mill and tell him thank you for the payoff tonight. Because I mean, I've gone to some places that he's wrapped people around the damn building to get in years ago in El Paso and L.A. You know, so I've made money with Mill. You know, and respect him and like him, and he was the first guy to have music in Japan. He and the Funks were the first two. They actually started coming to the ring with music other than a New Japan wrestling theme. You know,
Right.
so there's a lot of nostalgia whenever he was in there, and with Kojika too. You know, as Kojika one time years ago we were coming from Lubbock to Amarillo, and he was in a car with me. And there was this guy that we used to go at. He lived in Happy, Texas, and he was a deputy sheriff in Happy, Texas. And we'd call up on the CB at that time and say, "Is a happy hooker out there, the homosexual lawman?" And he'd say, "All right, you son of a bitches, I'll stick a 45 up your ass and blow your brains out. What's your 20?" You know. And
Right.
we wouldn't tell him we'd drive him nuts with it, you know. Finally, he figured out that I'd drive through late at night and he'd be sleeping, you know, next to the road thereabouts. So, and we'd drive by and I'd beep the horn at him, wake him up, and I'd outrun him. And so I thought that was good, you know. And one night I had Kojika in the car with me, you know, and so this time I went ahead and beeped the horn and honked and everything else, went to outrun him, and he had this old Falcon, and I'm driving like a maniac, and he said, "Oh, just like Western movies, you know." Except they had a roadblock ahead of us up there, you know, and they stopped us, you know,
Right.
threw me in jail for the night.
Oh,
Kojika didn't think that was too good when he was behind the bars, too.
you did a few shots for California XPW Rob Black's promotion. How did that go, Rob Black's?
Went very well. Worked with Sabu out there, and had a good match with him. Again, as I think that some guys it's very evident to the fans and the people too that some guys don't really understand. I think Rob was going through that. That it was Rob, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think he went through it just like a lot of other people did. Is that they felt like they looked at the business and they looked at it wrongly when they started producing violence for the sake of violence. And I think that there's some organizations that have done that around the country. And yes, violence is a part of the business, but you have to look at how you use it and the amount that you do use in an evening for the fans. And I think that was one of the things that was unsuccessful about his operation. But it had some very good things too. It had some good matches, good things. But that was one of the things that I felt like was a detriment to his deal.
What are your
I tell him the same thing.
Right.
And like the guy.
What are your thoughts on the future of XWF, and how did your recent match go with Greg Valentine?
I think XWF. I think I think the Nasty Boys are busting their ass. I think Jimmy Hart's busting his ass. I think that every one of those guys are busting their ass. I think they've got the opportunity if they get to television. If they don't get to television, you can't do it.
Right.
And that one is one that they have the financial ability to get into television. If they do get to television, they might have the ability to continue on with it. But hopefully they do, because they're busting their ass, and they run a good show, run a very good show, and they do a great job of publicizing it. And I'll tell you, it's hard to go ahead and do, 2,000-3,000 people without a TV show. You know that, Rob, more than anybody does. And if you try to do that, and you can do that, you know that they're busting their ass somewhere along the way. But they've got to have the TV somewhere. If that's the route they're choosing to go with,
right,
with the television, they've got to make that major breakthrough and get that tie with that television station or that network that can get them out there and get exposure for them. And again, they're going to have to watch out, because once they get on there, it's going to start being the pick you apart deal.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts about your upcoming match in Florida with Dusty, Abby, and Kevin?
That's the damnedest thing I ever heard of. I was in shock. I was in shock when I heard that Abby and Kevin were in it, when they added Dusty.
Right.
I thought, damn. It's going to be quite a strange match. It's got to be a classic. It's going to either be classic good, classic bad, or whatever it is, but it's a classic.
It is classic.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Who do you feel that's going to be the next big star in the business?
Next big what?
Yeah, big star. Who do you feel is going to be the next big star?
That's really a difficult question. That's probably the hardest question of all the questions that you've asked me. It's going to be whoever Vince McMahon picks to push.
Right.
And that could be anybody. And it's not on talent measure. Used to, you could go ahead and say that. And you say, well, again, we're back to the same thing. What he perceives it to be. Used to, I could say, well, God damn, this guy's the greatest guy down here. He's going to be a champion. And he would be, because there was different areas that he could go to, that he could emerge. And because of his talent, because of a need of somebody to compete with this other guy that they have over here that has to be better than their champion, we need a better champion, he would get there. And I could make a prediction. But just now, whoever Vince McMahon wants it to be. And God only knows. Look at Vince Russo, whoever he wanted it to be.
David Arquette.
You got it.
What are your thoughts on the current reports that actually Steve Austin has pulled somewhat of a strike due to his displeasure of the current state of the WWF, particularly Hall, Nash, and Hogan?
Not surprised at all. And I'll tell you what, you're looking at Steve Austin, he's not a bad guy. And a pretty up and up guy. And pretty much of a guy that's for the company. And that's, they better hope they don't get a company stand. Maybe they should. Maybe now is the time could not be a better time in the world for us to catch up with, instead, come out of the dark ages and step into the real world of unionizing. Now would be the greatest time in the world for somebody to get together and say, hey guy, we're going to have something. Because believe me, I've seen too many old wrestlers, and I'm not talking about for myself. I don't want anything. I don't want old Joe Blow to have something over there either, you know, or you know, anybody, or I don't care about any of us. But for you guys that are out there right now, by God, there's a time to step on a bandwagon. There's a time to go ahead and say, hey, we need this. It's for us. It's as a group, as wrestlers. And from what I understand, they got a pretty good group up there. If that group gets together, they can go ahead and make some demands on that. And they could go ahead and pretty much unionize right now and be successful at it. It's you know, you have to pick the fruit when it's ripe.
And a Roddy Piper wants to do the same thing.
Well, I don't know. You have to pick the fruit when it's ripe. It's ripe now. It's ripe. It's, you know, it's time to pick it. It's time to move forward. It's time to get yourself out of the dark ages. It's time to go ahead and, hey, whenever you're 60, you know, whenever you're 62 or whatever it is, or 58, or, you know, or 75, it doesn't matter. You got you a little something coming from something that you've given your life to. You've got you something where you can go ahead and you can get, you know, if you break your goddamn arm, you can go ahead and have it set. And it doesn't cost you $500. And that's not too much to ask for. You need to think about that, guys. You need to get to the bottom line with it. You need to do it. Because if you don't, the time will pass. And you will not have that opportunity.
If the WWF offered you a spot on WrestleMania as your last and final match, how would you like it to be booked?
My last and final match again. Now, Rob, you've talked about this, my last and final match, last and final match, my last and final match. And now if they offered me a match, the last and final match, how would I like to be booked in my last and final match? How in the hell can I have so, like I said, I want to come to the ring and say, all right, you son of a bitches, this is my last and final match. I want a contribution to the Funker. Who would I like to have it with?
There you go. That's a good question.
I would like to have it with possibly the worst wrestler in the world today. I don't know who that would be. Somebody that was really, really horrible. I would like to leave the
Ralphus?
people with a stinking impression. My last
Dennis
match.
Stamp be the referee?
Dennis Stamp could be the referee. We would have I would like to go ahead and have a real horrible match. A stinking match, a real stinkeroo, where I couldn't come back from my last match, after the last match, after the last match, after the last match, after the last match. That's like who called the piccolo player a mother.
Thoughts on The Rock?
You ever heard that joke?
No, no.
Oh, it's a great joke. I'd tell it to y'all, but you don't have time. Okay.
We might at the end. Thoughts on The Rock?
Thoughts on The Rock?
Yeah.
The one I always answer on The Rock, same one, is that the only person I've ever wrestled 3 generations. His pop, his pop, and his grandfather. It's quite a thrill whenever I wrestle him to wrestle 3 generations. Thoughts on The Rock? Sharp guy, good mind, good mind for this business. Coined a lot of things. You know, really broke the ground after he and Stone Cold are the two that broke the ground. They broke the ground. After the other guys, all of the big superstars and super studs went ahead and left, they came in there and they became as big, if not bigger than the other guys. Produced more revenue as the other guys.
Are you disappointed that
And for the company.
Right.
Which is for all guys.
It's true. Are you disappointed that the WWF doesn't do more with Tommy Dreamer?
Hell, I didn't even know they was doing with anything with him. So if I am disappointed because hell, I haven't even seen Tommy Dreamer. What is Tommy Dreamer doing?
Dark matches and stuff like that.
Dark
They
matches.
sent him down to Ohio Valley for Les Thatcher, or not Ohio.
Heartland.
Yeah, Heartland.
I think that's absurd. Are you sure he's not behind the scenes?
He's not.
There's a guy that they should have behind the scenes. There's a guy with ideas out his ass.
Yep.
There's a guy that's very creative. You hear people say, Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer did more with Tommy Dreamer than anybody could have done. Tommy Dreamer's got a great mind on him. And he's a good worker. I don't care how fat he is.
Right. I'll tell him you said
Tom,
that.
huh?
I'll see him tomorrow, actually. So
Yeah, well, I hope you do. Please tell him I said
I will.
hi.
I will.
Great guy.
Do you think that Vince should have continued the show after Owen Hart passed away?
Another tough question. At the time, I would have said no. Now, possibly so. That's a tough question. I wouldn't have continued the show. Not at all. I wouldn't have. And even now, after thinking about it, just the time that I give it to it is I wouldn't continue the show. Very tragic thing, an unnecessary thing that happened.
Yeah. It is. How would you have booked the WCW invasion angle with the WF? What would you have done?
I certainly wouldn't have done what they had done. I never have really contemplated that. So if I had some time to think about it, I'm sure I could come up with some kind of good bullshit, better than what his was. What I would have honestly done is I kept it totally separate, and I would have, and it's very difficult to do in this world that we are today. But I would have kept the sale unknown as long as possible to the public, and I would have gone on with the other side,
Right.
and I would have continued that way, and I think I would have made two different wrestling entities, and I would not have. And whenever you do that, though, and he could have done it, he could have split, kept good talent with one, kept good talent with the other, wrestle once a year. Don't ever go ahead and converse with one another about the angles or the finishes. That way you're not overriding on your show and trying to be different. You create down there, we create up here just the way it was. Once a year, have a WrestleMania or, an invasion.
Right.
But do it properly with your proper people. And you could have blown people's minds away with it if you'd have done it that way. But it's very difficult. See, that's parts that we don't understand. Is how difficult is it to keep it from the fan
Right.
that the thing has converged into one.
Speaking of keeping it a secret from the public, do you think the internet has hurt the business? Of how open it is?
Has the internet hurt the business by being open to it?
Everybody knows everything even before it happens.
No, the internet has not hurt a thing. It's like, has wrestling hurt the wrestling business? It's not wrestling. It's the people within wrestling. Have they hurt wrestling business? Wrestling is wrestling. The internet is the internet. It's the people on the internet, and the fans on the internet hurt the business. Internet has not hurt a thing. It's helped everything. It has every asset in the world for it, for the business. It's made for the wrestling business. The internet is. But have the fans on it, or have not the fans? The fans have not heard it, because the fans only report what they've heard. It's the people that go ahead and think that they have such wonderful ideas. It's the people within the business that have hurt themselves through the internet, if it has been hurt that way. It's created excitement. That excitement, I think, would still be there. You understand what I'm saying? I think it gets a little bit around backwards. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Some of the shit is just unnecessary on the internet. You know, I mean, I think it would have the same interest if it was handled properly. I'm not trying to say hide anything. I'm not saying hide the backgrounds, anything else. The greatest thing in the world is whenever we became what we are as entertainment. That's the two greatest things that have happened in this business. Vince McMahon declaring us entertainment, and the other one was probably in the last 20 years was Bischoff going ahead with Vince McMahon. Those are probably two of the biggest things that have happened in our business, I think.
When the WF brought back the ECW crew back for that angle, were you ever contacted at all?
No,
No. Okay.
no, of course not.
What do you think of guys like
I got a
Flair?
call from Paulie.
Did you?
When Paulie went back up there, he was up there about the second week, and he said, "Terry, I want to thank you for everything." Honest call.
All right.
And he said, "I love you." I said, "I love you too, Paulie. I wish you the best." Exact conversation.
That was it.
That's it.
What do you think of guys like Flair and Hogan still wrestling on TV? Still wrestling in general?
I think it's great. I think it's great that they're still wrestling and still want to wrestle. But I think that they have to, they have to be a judgment of their own quality that they are doing. And I think it's great. I think any age is great. And again, it's what I said before.
Right.
It's not the age of the guys; it's the age of the angles. And I think it is. I think it's great. I know myself personally, is I've got standards that I set, and I know that I have to still be creative, and I still have to try to be new. And if they can be new and creative, I think it's great. And that's just, and again, that's as far as angles are concerned, is the way they're being used. I think to just be there, I don't want to just be there like I was, and but I still created in my own way in what I was doing in WCW. But I think there's a time when you say, I'm going on down the road. And I think Flair and Hogan, I think if they're very smart about what they're doing, if they can keep themselves fresh, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. But if they produce shit,
Right.
well then you are shit, and the people will accept you as such. You know. Sometimes you can cover shit with chocolate though and sell it.
Still tastes like shit when you bite into it, though.
Yeah, it does. It's true.
Is there anyone out there today that you could probably say that you influenced?
I think probably I influence a lot of guys. And again, my brother has a wrestling school, and a very good wrestling school, as a matter of fact, down in Florida. But I myself, I don't want to train wrestlers. I don't want to deal with them. But I like to be around them, and I try to be a good representation of what I am when I am around them. And I think that I have influenced them by the way that I do things, and my thoughts on the business, my goals in this business, my love of the business. I hope that has influenced them. That's very, very important to me that I influence them. Whenever I was a young buck running around, I wasn't much of an influence. I was a pain in the ass and going crazy, But hopefully, as they say, by God, he does things right. That's why I want to do them.
Do you feel you'll ever make any more trips to Japan?
I probably will if they call up,
Right.
because I like going back. I like the money. And I like the people. I like the food. I like everything about the country. It's been great to me. Sure, I'll go back. And I don't know if that time will arise again or not. And again, haven't really milked it. But milking's whenever you go back here, whenever you shouldn't go back here. But they've usually called me up on the shows and on certain shows and brought me back into there, and I've been pretty successful for them. And maybe another big one will come up. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
What company?
I could care less. I mean, I stopped caring about companies, what was it, 1985 or something like that? You know. But,
What are your 5 most memorable matches and why? I know everybody asks you this question, but
5 most memorable matches, the
Or
same
even
answer
3.
that I always give is, then I'll try to answer it differently, is that I've wrestled through so many eras and so many guys that I don't have 5.
you could do one from the 70s, one from the 80s, one from the 90s.
That's separating time, and again, it's what I tell people about time, is I hate to go ahead and I don't want to, I live in the present. I always have tried to live in the present. I think that's why I've lasted so long. So now you're going to make me pull things out. Memorable matches. Briscoe was the one, naturally. Jack Briscoe. Very memorable match. Flair 89. Sputnik Monroe 65. Being in the ring with Mike DiBiase, probably one of the greatest teachers and wrestlers that I wish every young guy could have the opportunity to be around. Johnny Valentine, St. Louis. Just taking a very simple thing and making it so hot of him selling a leg that Sam Muchnick cut the entire program because it was too hot. Because of his in-the-ring psychology and ability to make something out of nothing. Abdullah, Japan and the Sheik, probably the best thing that ever happened to me financially as far as being a wrestler and able to call my own shots afterwards because I was on a different level. Harley Race, just being in the ring with him as nuts as he is, and hell of a guy. Watching guys like Roddy Piper mature in his business and become a hell of a performer, not only in the ring, but probably the best actor to ever come out of this business. Just, I could go on down the road forever. I can go back to watching matches. The greatest matches I've ever seen. I've got to go way back. I've got to go back to my father and Mike DiBiase in Amarillo, Texas, which was one of the greatest angles that I've ever seen, as they went 4 hours and 10 minutes in a match. Shut it off at, started my show at 8 o'clock, shut it off at 12. No, they shut it off at 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock curfew.
One match?
And one match.
Wow.
They went into they had a death match that went 4 hours and 10 minutes. Then they brought it back, and the most wonderful thing, emotional thing in the world, is they brought the match back. Next death match, the only death match they had after that. And it was, the card was the one death match.
Huh.
A 2-man card with a standby match, 2 standby matches afterwards. What a great deal for making a payoff. You take the whole payoff. It's you and him together. That's it. But it's kind of neat seeing things like that happen, and seeing things like that is the creation of certain things that came through the years,
If you were to start your own promotion, who are some of the guys that you would want if you were to take a draft?
Well, after seeing Mikey Whipwreck, I'd go ahead and take some of his boys.
Hmm.
Sounds silly, doesn't it? Not really, does it?
No,
Nope.
they're good students.
And again, as I'd like to, if I started a new promotion, I'd like to start a new one like you and I talked about earlier. I'd like to start something different, something young, something new, something fresh, something that's not, you have to be competitive with Vince, but not that competitive. And whenever I'm talking about that, I'm saying that you want to compete on wrestling, but you don't want to be the same thing he is. You have to be something different. So what is different? And I know that people don't think this, but I'd say lighter weights, good guys, more into wrestling, you know, less talking. We all know that. We all know those answers, you know.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5, 10 years?
Be very seriously, I hope you see me in 5 or 10 years. I hope I'm still here. I sincerely hope that that I am enjoying my life with my wife, with my family, with my grandchildren. It becomes so much more simpler. It becomes so much more simpler as you get older. And I really, really, really just love each and every day here in this world. And they truly are a blessing. And they're truly wonderful. It's a wonderful gift. Life is the greatest gift of all. It's just fun. It's a hell of a blast. It's a hell of a trip. And I want to take advantage of all of these days. The way, and doing what the things that I want to do. It's not mowing the grass either. You know.
Right, right. Is there anything you want to say to the fans out there that are watching this video?
Not really. Except I'll be up at your, I'll be into your town soon with my next retirement match and get your goddamn money out. I need a contribution.
Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Okay.
And we hope to have you back for another one, maybe part
Maybe
3.
one of these days.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
After 5 years, I hope.
Yes, it's 5 years.
I'll have made it then.
The 10-year anniversary of the first shoot.
Exactly.
We'll do that.
I'd really like to bring you back with maybe Dusty and have you, Dusty, and Abby do a panel or something like
Oh,
that.
that would be funny with
That'd
Dusty.
be great. Good
You know,
stuff.
Dusty's supposed to be writing a book. If I had some bitch to write a book, it'd be funny. I'm telling you, it'd be the funniest motherfucker anybody ever read. He claims he's writing it, but Dusty claims everything. You know? But if he'd write a book, it'd be a funny motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, he's a funny motherfucker. There's not many funny
And he's hip.
motherfuckers in the world either.
He's hip. He's cool.
Oh yeah, he always has been, you know. Even though he's fat. I would love to do an interview with Dusty.
Good stuff. Well, thanks again. Thank you.
Okay, I hope it's good enough